What up, y'all? Today we're going to replace the screen on this HP laptop because as you can see it's pretty broken. So today's tutorial is going to show you guys how to replace this screen on an HP laptop. All laptops are pretty similar, and as you can see I already have the bezel off, which I need to go put back on right now. And here we go, the bezel's back on, so now it's just like whenever you guys get a computer fresh from the factory. So we'll go through the steps that you guys need to do to fix this. Some tools you'll need is a Phillips screwdriver, preferably a fairly small one, I guess. You need some tools to pry off the bezel. Spudgers are basically the best, S-P-U-D-G-E-R-S, in case you don't know how to spell that. So plastic spudger, or if you need something really tiny, you can get like a metal spudger. But you have to be a little careful because you can actually hurt the computer with that. So those are the tools you'll need pretty much for the most part. And then I guess you need to figure out what kind of screen you need to get too. Here's a screen I got on Amazon. Basically what I do is just search like the model number of your computer and put in, say, replacement screen. And you should find some. If you don't, I can show you later on. Technically, like most laptop screens will really work on most laptops. So whenever I get the computer opened up, I'll elaborate on this a little more because a lot of connectors will work on multiple laptops. But if you just search the model number of your laptop, you'll probably find some stuff that's like between 40 to 60 bucks, which is a fairly good price, unless you have like a 17-inch or something like that. This is just a 15.6-inch, which is a pretty standard screen. One thing this HP doesn't have is here in the corners, there are no screws. Those are usually covered by stickers, and an easy way to get that off is with tweezers. You can just tweeze it right off there, tweeze the sticker. But in this case, there are no stickers. Usually they would be in the two left corners, possibly in the upper corners as well on an older laptop, but that's really less common. So sometimes they're a little sneaky down there, so you just have to, if the screen's not coming off very easily, you probably have a screw there. And I forgot to mention this, but make sure you take the battery out and you unplug the laptop, like I have here, so you don't electrocute yourself or the laptop, something like that. It's just it's just smart practice to unplug a computer whenever you're working on it, at least on the insides of it, of course. So now we're gonna take off the bezel, which is like this plastic on the front. Some laptops you take off the front, some you take off the back, but the process is basically the same as long as my camera can focus. Those two pieces of plastic will disconnect, and there's like little tabs, like you can see that one right there. There's several of them just spread along the sides, the top, even the bottom down here as well. So you just have to put your spudger in between here and like pop them open. Just be somewhat delicate, but as long as you're fairly careful, then you won't hurt anything. Also keep in mind that there might be some things underneath those areas. So like here's like the antenna for the Wi-Fi, and there's also like the webcam right there. So especially like at the top of the middle, that's usually where a lot of delicate stuff is. Watch out for that, you don't want to break that stuff. So just work your way along the bezel. Mine is going to be a lot easier because see, I barely even put it back on because I didn't really feel like it. But it can be a little tricky right around the hinges. That can be tricky, and this area can be tricky as well. A good tip for doing the bottom part is come from over here, like put the computer on the side and then try to come from underneath it. That'll work a lot easier, and if you have to, you can poke underneath here as well. Just be delicate. There's like usually like a circuit board right here, so try to watch out for that as well so you don't break it. Although if it's a broken screen, it probably doesn't really matter if you break it, but it's good practice to try to not break things. So once we do that, as you can see, on this laptop, it honestly has mounting that's not as standard on most laptops. So as you could possibly see, here's like a screw there and a screw there. You'll actually want to take out this screw. So like the mounting on this screen is there's like a little metal tab up here, a metal tab down there, a metal tab down here, and a metal tab up here. That's how this screen works. On some screens, this whole bracket around the whole screen here needs to basically come off this back plastic shell or casing or whatever the heck you call it. So it just kind of varies on laptop to laptop. In the case where like it's like this whole thing and it comes off, there's usually going to be 1, 2, 3 screws along the side that you also need to take off, so keep that in mind. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just unscrew the screen and take it off, but you don't have to totally unscrew like these screws down here and over here. You don't have to take the whole thing apart. So we'll take those off, and I organize my screws in a metal magnetic tray, I guess you would call it. So that's just makes life a little bit easier. Organizing the screws is helpful, although typically on laptops, screws are pretty self-explanatory. They usually don't trick you up too much, like, I don't know, like Apple does with like smartphones and stuff like that. It's usually a lot trickier. So now I have those 4 screws off, and this screen will just plop off. And then there's our video connector over here. A lot of times it's also on this side. It's usually here on the bottom though. So I don't know, and this is on a new modern laptop. On older laptops, sometimes there's like a little bar right here that I believe that routes the backlight power. But on modern laptops, you don't have to deal with that. So that's pretty nice. So here's that connector. There's usually a little piece of tape on the top of it, so you just take that tape off. And since I've already done this, it's obviously a little bit easier. And then you can kind of work this connector off with the little pry tool, or honestly, you can just pull it off with your fingers. It really isn't that delicate. So there it is. And now we'll talk about what kind of screens you can actually put back on this. So here's the connector on this screen. Believe it or not, this is actually a smaller connector than what normal laptops have. If like, I actually counted this to make sure whenever I ordered it. This is a 30-pin connector. There's literally 30 pins within this connector. Most laptops honestly have a 40-pin, which literally just means there's 40 pins on there. So that's something you can kind of look at whenever you're looking at screens. If it says it's a 30-pin and you have a 40-pin on your computer, that ain't gonna work. And if you get like a 40-pin for a 30-pin, it's not going to work as well. So keep that in mind. So that's one factor you need to think about whenever you're ordering a laptop screen. The other thing you need to keep in mind is the mounting. Like I said before, this one has the 4-corner mounting. So yeah, it's like that. A lot of laptops just have the mounting here on the sides that hook up to this, mounting here on the back casing. That's honestly what a lot of laptops do, but I think more modern laptops are kind of doing this for whatever reason. I don't really know if there's really a benefit either way, but that's how it is. And I guess it's also good to keep in mind, if the connector is like on this side on your computer and you're looking at one with the connector on this side, it's probably not going to work. I mean, it might technically work, but the cable you have on your computer, it might not be long enough to reach that. So that's something to also keep in mind. Keep in mind where your cable is coming from. See, on this side, it's over here, so it's not going to reach it if there's a connector over here. So you want to make sure the connector is on this side. So that's something to keep in mind. Here's the one I ordered, which, by the way, is the packaging was really, really terrible. Just absolutely horrendous. There's only one piece of foam holding it in place. I hope it's not broken, but we'll find out. Like, it already looks like it has, maybe that's just the usually this is covered by a piece of plastic. And I believe it is, yeah. Here's the little tab right here. So that's nice whenever you're installing it. You know, you don't get a lot of fingerprints on it. This tab over here is nice because you can actually pull it off after you've mounted the screen. So like this, you can still get to it. Sometimes it goes behind the screen and you have to make sure that you take it off before you put it on, because if like you take a look at it and it looks like it's not going to come off after you mount it, make sure you take off the protective film before you mount it so you don't have to take it back off. But here you can see the connector, and it looks like it is a 30-pin. It looks like it's a little bit smaller than the average 40. Apparently it's tested okay. Alright, cool. So yeah, there we go, cool stuff. And if the Amazon listing you're looking at doesn't explicitly say your model number of computer, it might still work as long as it has the right mounting, the right position of the video connector, and the right type of video connector. So keep all that stuff in mind. So first what I do is I always lay down the screen and plug in that connector. Just be careful. Especially since it's a new screen, you know, try not to damage it. And then I just push the tape back into place. You want to be really careful, or really, I guess, make sure that it's not going to come out. You can put some more like captain's tape on there, is what computer tape. I guess if you just have Scotch tape, you could put that on there as well, as long as you're not like touching the printed circuit board behind there. but hopefully that printed circuit board is covered anyway. So you can just do that to hold it in place, and then once we do that, now we can screw it onto the back of the computer. So this one just has, of course, those 4 screws. So I'm just going to screw in those just to make sure that the screen doesn't fall off and smash down. But before you screw everything back together, and before you put the bezel on and, you know, make a big deal to do all that stuff, make sure you test the screen, which is what I'm going to do after I have all these screws in place. Because it's a lot easier to troubleshoot the screen with the bezel off. That way you don't have to put the bezel back on. And you don't want to keep taking the bezel off and putting it back on, because you can damage the plastic tabs that hold it in place on the computer. Alright, so moment of truth. Does it work? That'd be nice. It looked like it got damaged in shipment, but apparently it wasn't. Cool, so it worked. At this point, you can take off the plastic protector, which is really stuck on there. And we can put the bezel back on, start with the bottom, and then just click everything back into place. You should be able to hear an audible click every time you push one of these into place. Yep, there we go. So now it's clicked back in place and everything, and it's ready to go. So thank you guys for watching this tutorial. If you guys have any questions on how to replace the screen, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. It's pretty easy. You take off the bezel, you take off the screen, and you take out the connector on the screen, put the new connector on, put the screen back on, put the bezel back on, and it's fixed. So it's really not that difficult, but it's, you know, it's something that gets easy over time. I mean, I've done like 100 of these, so it gets pretty easy after you've done that many of them, you know. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.